Thanks. I'm honored to participate in the inaugural John Brandt Forum on a topic that's so important to agricultural economists' data, and one where I wish John was here because he would bring real insights into the questions we're talking about today. At the Economic Research Service, we have a mission to inform public and private decision-making on economic and policy issues related to food, agriculture, the environment, and rural development. And in this role, we're both a user and a provider of data. And I'll make comments from both these perspectives. As data users, ERS welcomes new sources of data, and we're ready to tap data that's produced by the private sector, by other federal statistic agencies, and as such, we see great potential for big data. To date, the biggest data that ERS has employed comes from retail scanner data that we purchase from a private company. And another source of what is sort of big data, but not big in the sense JB talked about, is geo-referenced environmental data, where we merge multiple sources of data to tell a story about the landscape of American agriculture. So from ERS's perspective, I think of this as a big tent approach to data. We look for all sources to do our mission and provide information to the public and private decision makers. Now, I do want to say something more about federal statistical agencies, and ERS is one of the 14 principal federal statistical agencies. We do have several strengths. JB mentioned some of them, and I'll elaborate a bit more. I think one is turning data into information that can be used to inform decisions. As a long-term part of the landscape, we develop and support concepts and measurement that can tell the story of a sector and the progress that we're making. And we can adapt these things as the world changes. One example I think that will resonate with people is contracts. You know, ERS has been measuring agricultural and farm income since before the role of contracting was large. But it's grown, and as it's grown, we've changed our measurement concepts so that you can incorporate this new financial tool, but still have a consistent measure over time. And this is the kind of thing that a federal statistical agency and federal government is very good at doing. We can invest in the long-term capacity and the research to support this information. So the first slide I have shows ERS statistics for farm income and farm structure. And on the left, the lines show from top to bottom gross farm income, production expenses, and net farm income dating back to 2000. And we have statistics that go back much further. And the data behind these statistics come from varied sources, farm surveys, NASS receipts data, but then they're blended or put into the sausage making of a model based on AAEA or agricultural economic standards. And I think this illustrates how at an agency with a long-term commitment, we can put these complex systems together. On the right, you see a map that shows changes in midpoint acreages for crop farms from '82 to 2007, and this uses data from NASA's Census of Agriculture. And this is us, ERS, developing a measure to show changes in structure over time, where the dark blue states have seen a more than doubling of this measure of the size of farms between '82 and 2007. So this is taking data and turning it into information that can be used for decision making and allow public sector and the private sector to determine the health of the sector and to use this and look behind it to look at the driving forces behind the changes. So I just highlight that this documents or shows two important roles of a federal statistical agency: quality, complex, comparable information over the long horizon. And we do face budget challenges, but I can argue and be happy to discuss that we're very efficient and cost effective in providing these kinds of systems of data and can do this at probably outcompete anybody in providing this information. Public sector statistics have additional strengths in providing objective and trusted information that accurately represents the characteristics of populations, places, or groups of business that are surveyed to obtain them. So we get statistically representative samples, and then we make this available to everyone. We provide public goods with the data that we produce. And my second slide and last slide shows information from the Agricultural Resource Management Survey, or ARMS, that's carried out by ERS and NASS. This survey provides an annual statistically representative picture of farm finances and practices. And on the top slide, you have information on the share of planted acres under no-till systems for selected crops over time. On the bottom, you have information in 2006, 1 year, on acres treated by commercial nitrogen or manure that do not use best management practices. So I think you can see how this is information representative of American agriculture. It would be very valuable in both formulating and evaluating conservation policy, and we have behind it information on farm finances and characteristics that researchers can use to understand the drivers of policy and help predict the likelihood of what would happen with changes in the policies. So it's a transforming data into information. And I think the public sector is particularly well placed to survey farmers and produce this kind of objective, trusted information. So that's a pitch for roles of public sector data. Just conclude by saying some things on private sector or big data. And I think that this isn't, well, public sector is not unique in being able to represent populations, but to take this kind of private sector or big data and say something about the American public, you need to do extra work to document its strengths and its capability to be a representative. We've done that with the retail scanner data I mentioned earlier, but it's not just because it's not the data we produce doesn't mean it's free. We have to buy the data, we have to invest in research to understand its characteristics, and we invest quite a bit of time and energy in working with the private providers to ensure that we can release the studies that we have done with this data and make it available to other researchers. So just to summarize, as part of ERS's data strategy, it's a big tent. We welcome all types of data to meet our mission. We just really need to work with it to ensure it's quality data, and look forward to hearing from the other participants.